Have you ever tried to start a good habit only to forget about it the next day? Or maybe you feel like your days are slipping from your grasp, and at the end of the night, all you can really think of is, damn bro, did I even do anything productive today? Well, the first question I would ask you is, what did you do today? And then you answer, but you can't recall what you did today because you didn't track anything. And in that case, maybe there's hope for you. Hey, I'm Evan, and I like to track everything like a freak. Now subscribe, bit. So before I get started talking about what I track, I think it's best to start by talking about the compound effect, which is pretty much the premise of this entire video. So the compound effect is a book written by Darren Hardy, and it explores the concepts of how small, consistent actions, when compounded over time, can lead to significant and lasting changes. The book emphasizes the power of making incremental improvements and staying disciplined in various aspects of life, which in turn leads to a more happy and successful life. These areas include personal habits like drinking enough water, making sure your relationships are healthy and intact, finances so you can make sure that you make more than you spend, and honestly, I think the most important aspect is health. Because without health, none of what I just mentioned even matters. You can be the richest dude in the world, but if you're dying from lung cancer because you smoked your entire life, then your riches mean nothing when you're 6 foot under. Truthfully, I've spoken about how small changes add up, and I've made so many videos about this now, so I don't want to go too much into depth because I think you should just watch those. But the main takeaway for this section of the video is consistency, choosing the right habits, and of course, tracking them, which is the main point of this video. So now let's talk about what I track, because I track a lot of things on a daily basis. I won't mention every little tiny single thing that I track because that's just too much and I don't think you really care. But I'll share what I track, that what I think has led to the most returns for the effort. Let's start with tracking good habits, because this is probably the most important thing. This is where the compound effect really works, and when you're tracking it down and you see that you're doing the right thing every day, well, I mean, I've already made a whole video called doing the right thing every single day. I track, as of now, 10 things that I must do every single day. To me, if I can do these 10 things every single day, then I call that day a win. I'll just have it on screen right here, like all the 10 things just running down the list. But just know that these things do change from time to time, and I'm constantly updating my daily habit list because habits do change, and sometimes I need to streamline my day, or maybe I want to add a little bit more. It depends really how I'm feeling. And another great thing about tracking your habits is you make sure you actually do the habit. Sometimes I forget if I read that day or not, so I can just look at my habit tracker and remember, oh yeah, I did read in the morning, I just forgot about it. It's a good indicator to know if you did the thing or not, and you can't really lie to yourself. So the app that I used is called Habitica. It's an app I've been using for many years now at this point, and it's really nice because it kind of takes your habits and it gamifies them, and I'm someone who really benefits from gamification. I find it really fun and very motivating, in fact. I want to make a video on this later and to go more in depth, because I think this app is just amazing if you used to play video games or you still play video games. It doesn't matter. If you like video games, I think you'll like this habit tracker. But yeah, this thing is just amazing, and my lights are reflecting. Great. It also helps me track my bad habits too. Like maybe if I do too much mindless scrolling in one day, or if I bite my nails or something, I can track that down so I know, oh wow, I'm doing way too much of this. I need to make a change. Next up is finances. So if you've been watching my channel for some time now, you know that in 2021, I tracked every single expense I made for an entire year, which again, you should highly check out that playlist. I put a ton of work into the videos, especially around the end. But the reason for this is that you can make a lot of money in your life, but if you don't track where you spend it, you can easily blow through your entire fortune and you're back to the bottom. Why do you think most lottery winners go broke after they win millions or even billions? It's because they didn't track their expenses and they didn't realize they were spending way more than they could handle. Now, having a lot of money won't fix your problems, but if you can learn to manage your money, especially if you learn to manage just a little bit of money, then managing a lot more money becomes easier. It's just the same thing, but times 10 or something, you know? I've been doing this since I made roughly $400 a month as a student working a part-time job, and I still do this now that I'm a full-time employee with a big boy job. Doesn't matter how much money you're making, you should be tracking it. And to track it, I just use a simple spreadsheet. I mean, you don't need anything crazy, and yeah, maybe there's better apps or better ways to track it in like a spreadsheet or something, but I don't care. This is what I've been using and it works for me. It's super simple, and it's how I ensure that I make more than I spend, and that I use that extra money that I didn't spend and I save and invest it. It's really that simple. Next, I track what I eat. I think for anybody who's doing cutting or bulking, this is pretty much an essential, but I don't think that you have to do it. But if you're a beginner to tracking food and macros, this is definitely a good thing to get into. I'm also a big fan of tracking what foods I ate, because maybe I can look back and say, wow, I drank 3 bubble teas this week. Maybe I should take a break on the bubble teas. And the app that I use is called Lose It. And yes, I know that there are better apps, and I know that this app is more towards weight loss, but I've been tracking my foods for well over 2 years now, which is longer than I've been bulking and cutting. So it's just an app that's familiar to me, and it has all my foods on there already, so I don't really see a point to switching. Next, I track my water intake, because staying hydrated is badass. Making sure that I drink a minimum of 3 liters of water a day makes me feel great. It makes me feel hydrated. I feel like I look good. It gives me a lot of energy. It's just, there's no reason to not hydrate. And when I don't drink enough water, I can almost feel it. It's like, I feel like shit. I don't think I really need to go into too much depth as to why you should be drinking more water. I mean, you can just Google it and you'll see all the benefits. And for actually tracking my water, I just use a very simple water tracking app. It's also nice because it gives me reminders from time to time. And a bonus is that I can enter the water on my watch. Next, I track workouts and fitness using a calendar and Notion. When it comes to tracking my workouts, I use a combination of tools here. First, I have an old school calendar which I use to track my workouts. I just write down what workout I did and then I cross it out with an X when I actually did the workout. I'll have it on screen right here about what it looks like and to kind of give you an idea of what I've been doing on my workouts. And I have mentioned this calendar a couple times in some old videos, but this calendar is ultimately the reason why I started working out in the first place. It all started with me putting an X to form a chain, if you want to call it that. And when I did any workout, I would just put down an X. And then when I saw that chain growing, it's just more motivation to keep going. Next thing you know, that chain is growing, you have a week filled out, and then you have a whole month, and then you start filling in years, and it's motivation, man. If it gets you going, it gets you going. But for tracking what I actually do in those workouts, that's where Notion comes in hand. I just use a simple Notion spreadsheet. I don't complicate it. And once again, there are better apps. You find an app that works best for you. It's just that I like the simplicity of making my own spreadsheets. I like being able to just manually change anything I want. I don't know. I feel like I don't need anything crazy. So this is what works for me. Your mileage may vary. Do what you want. I love you. And then finally, I like to track my events that I go to, or just anytime I'm going to do anything with somebody. Maybe I have like a haircut appointment, which my hair is getting kind of long. I need to use my calendar. And it's just a way to make sure that I ensure that important events are actually going to happen. For me, if it's in my calendar, it's gonna happen. I don't know what it is. If I don't put it in the calendar, I just don't do it. But if I put it in there, I do it. Maybe it's a psychological thing. There are just so many times where I say I'm gonna do something, but then life gets in the way so that I don't get to doing it, and then I just forget about it. And this probably sounds all too familiar to you. I'm sorry if this is triggering you. Well, now if I want to make time to, let's say, have a date night with my girlfriend, or maybe hang out with some friends, I put it in the calendar and I make sure that it happens. A good example of this is I went to go do an oil change on my car and I just didn't schedule it in my calendar. But then when I finally put down a date and a time, I did it. I finally did it. It just goes to show that putting something in a calendar can actually make things happen. And my calendar of choice is Google Calendar. I mean, it's a pretty straightforward calendar, but the reason that I use Google Calendar compared to any other calendars, like even though I'm on iPhone, I don't use the built-in calendar because that calendar just sucks. And the integrations on Google Calendar are just too good. It integrates nicely with platforms like Calendly so that I can just have events put in my calendar for me. And I love color coding everything because now I can just look at it at a glance and I know what type of event this is going to be. For example, yellow means, oh, it's an editing session, or it's like a YouTube project session. Blue is hanging out with friends. Purple is having date nights with my girlfriend. Like, these things are just so easy to just look at and see, oh great, I'm gonna do that. Okay, so there's probably things that I forgot to mention in this part of the video, but again, these are the things that I think had the greatest returns on the effort put into it. So I think if you're interested in trying to track something, maybe you could use my things that I track as inspiration, which actually leads nicely to the next thing I want you to do, because I don't want this video to be all about me, which is that I want to give you an actionable step that you can do right now. I want this actionable step to help you build good habits, and I want those good habits to last longer than a New Year's resolution. So first, I want you to pick one thing to track. Make a Notion spreadsheet, grab a piece of paper and fill in some squares with the dates. Use a calendar, physical or digital. Use a habit tracking app. I don't care what you do. Just get some way that you can track it and make it accessible. Make sure you can access this within like a minute, because you're going to be touching it a lot. Just make sure that you pick a tool to track the thing you want to track, and pick a thing that you actually want to track. Now, maybe you can track something small, like making sure you're drinking enough water in a given day, or even how many times you've meditated for a minimum of 5 minutes per day in a month. It doesn't matter. Just pick something that you want to do. Don't just take my habits. Take something that you want to start doing. And then finally, you simply track it. Try and make it binary though. So what I mean by this is you want to make the goal very clear for what counts as a check for the day. So let's say you want to be an avid water drinker like myself. Then maybe you want to make the goal, I drank 2 liters of water today. And if you didn't drink 2 liters of water today, you don't count it as a win. Maybe you drank 1.9 liters. Doesn't count. You have to do 2 liters. You have to be very strict with yourself or else it's not really going to work. But that's about it. The simpler, the better. If you can start by tracking one thing, then tracking multiple things becomes a cakewalk. It's not actually that bad to track so many things, and the reason why it's so easy to snowball this is because you just got started. Getting started is always going to be the hardest part of any new habit, especially a good one. So if you do this for a whole month, I guarantee you'll start tracking other things and building good habits, which by law of the compound effect, you will see massive returns. These returns may not be immediate, but over months or even years, your life is going to be in a much better position, and the only question that you're going to have for yourself is, why didn't I start this earlier?